Okay, welcome to Module 4. So when you complete this module, you are at the halfway point. Good job. Okay, so this week we're looking at historical context and how things change. So just as an example, and I hope this is not politically offensive, I hope it's politically correct, but I am 50, 50, youthful and vibrant, so it probably shocks you, but I am 50. So when I was in high school, our high school was across the street from a church, and this church had a wall that just went around part of their parking lot. And so from the outside of this wall, it was about hip high. And so, you know, people could sit on it. I never did, because that is where the stoners, that's where they hung out. And so there was a negative stigma, right? But fast forward, what do we see on almost every street corner now? Pot shops, right? Everybody's doing it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people are doing it. And so that has changed dramatically, wildly. I think in part because of this fabulous word they added, medical, right? Started out first medical marijuana, now there are dispensaries for every kind of marijuana, depending on where you're, the states you live in. My state is one of those states. So that is a prime example of a huge shift right in front of my eyes in my lifetime. We see these examples as we go along. In 1776, Abigail Adams was begging John Adams, her husband, in a letter, hey, in this new code of laws that you make after we declare our independencies, remember the ladies. They didn't. Heck no. We do not see voting rights for women until 1920. And so you see there's these changes all throughout history. Things that used to be, just abhorred. Now everybody's doing it. Rights that were not enjoyed. Now more people have them. One thing I encourage you to do as you seek to understand the context and the change is find a Supreme Court case. There are many Supreme Court cases about almost every issue. I think you would be hard pressed to find an issue that has not been talked about by the Supreme Court. And I encourage you to read the opinion. Have a dictionary. That's what I do. But if I can read them, you can read them. I promise. And so find them. For example, interracial marriage used to be against the law. And then we see the Loving versus Virginia case that makes it so that interracial marriage is legal nationwide. Married people seeking birth control used to be against the law. Not all that long ago either, in the 60s. These people were operating a clinic in Connecticut. And so a married woman comes for contraceptive advice. The operators of the clinic are arrested for giving her advice because it violated a Connecticut law that said married people cannot. There's no contraceptives for married people. We want these married people spitting out kids. And this woman did not want to have a child. And so this goes all the way to the Supreme Court, Griswold versus Connecticut. And they say, hey, there's an implied right to privacy. We're staying out of the marital bedroom. Do whatever you want. So, which is correct. But anyway, in the Supreme Court cases, not only do we get these interpretations of law, the Supreme Court justices are historians. And so everything the Supreme Court does is based on precedent. They are either upholding precedent or they're going to change. And they will give the history of the issue. And it's fabulous. So again, I have to read it with a dictionary, but that is a great place to get to see. They will lay out how the historical context has shifted over time. So if you're stumped, find yourself a Supreme Court case, because I promise they've had something to say about it. And that's their job. That's why we have them. The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch can veto them or enforce them, sign them in and enforce them. And then we have the Supreme Court who interprets. Did we do it right? Does it need to be changed? So the Supreme Court is a vast resource for history students. All right, so this week you have a discussion and you're using your project topic. You guys have selected great project topics. So you're using your project topic in your post. Then in your replies, you're commenting on your peers. What do you know about it? How does it relate? Have you seen something in the news recently about your peer's topic? That's the context, the sum total of the discussion. Then for your journal assignment, you're looking at differences between dominant social thought, such as my high school stoners to today, or anything else. There's so many things have changed. So everything has changed. So there's plenty of things to pick for this journal assignment. As always, check out the guidelines and rubric for the discussion, follow the prompts, and have a great week.